And we are live.
Excellent. Thanks, Andy. Why don't we just kick right in. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the City of Newburyport Zoning Board of Appeals for the meeting of January 26, 2021, it being 7 p.m. The appointed time that we've published on our notice and elsewhere. This is the commencement time for the ZBA meeting. And Andy, we can go ahead and are we publishing now for participants as well?
We are, yep.
Great. Well, I'll introduce myself. I'm Rob Ciampetti, the chairman of the ZBA. I'll start this evening by doing a quick roll call and introduction of the board members and just essentially following our board agenda this evening. We'll go into public hearings. We have one matter that has been requested to further continue, and we'll address that first, and then we'll get right into the items that are on the agenda for this evening that will actually go forward. To begin, I'm going to start by just quickly introducing those members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, as well as members of the planning staff that are on the Zoom call this evening as well. We have, of course, Andy Port, our planning director, Caitlin Sullivan, our city planner, as well as Ms. Gretchen Joy, who's our keeper of the minutes. To that point, when we get to the public hearing section, there'll be a public hearing component where we entertain comments from the public. And when we get to that point in time, and I'll explain when we do, we'll just ask you to please state your name, your full name and your address for the record so that Ms. Joy can include that in her minutes. In addition, this evening, we have Mr. Mark Moore, our vice chair, Mr. Stephen Delisle, our secretary, Ms. Rachel Webb, ZBA member, Mr. Ken Swanton, ZBA member, and Mr. Walter Channon, associate member. And again, I'm Rob Ciampetti, chairman. So without further ado, we will go through the quick roll call. Once we establish a quorum, we'll then, I'll walk through quickly how the format works for those that haven't attended a ZBA via Zoom hearing before. We'll just go through essentially what the format is for purposes of public participation, and then we'll get right into the first order of business this evening. Starting with the roll call, I'll just call the members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and please respond if you are present by saying either aye or here. Mr. Mark Moore.
Here.
Mr. Stephen Delisle.
Here.
Ms. Rachel Webb.
Here.
Mr. Ken Swanton.
Here.
And Mr. Walter Channon.
Here.
Rob Ciampetti, I'm here as well. That's 6 in attendance. The 5 voting members this evening will be Mr. Moore, Mr. Delisle, Ms. Webb, Mr. Swanton, and myself. And Mr. Channon is available as our associate member in the event of any conflict of interest where a member has to recuse themselves. Going into, and that establishes our quorum for this evening. Going into the public hearings, we have the first matter that's being continued. This is the application on 2224 Oak Street. Richard Morrill, care of Lisa Mead, Tellerman and Costa LLC. It's 2 components, docket 2020-089 and 090, both of which are dimensional variances. Attorney Mead, do you wish to be heard on the request to continue, or just have the board vote on the continuance to the hearing of, Andy, what's the date that we're looking for? 2/9, February 9th.
I'm covering, this is Jay Tallerman. I'm covering for Lisa tonight, and no, we don't need to be heard, just requesting the continuance to the February date.
Thank you very much, Attorney Tallerman. I apologize, I was aware of that. Okay, so the applicant's doesn't seek to be heard any further. Members of the board, we have just a request to continue to the hearing of February 9th. I will, and this is as to both applications, we'll just take one single verbal vote. I'll call the roll. Please respond either in the affirmative or in the negative by saying yay or nay. This is on the motion. Actually, you know what? Let me back up. Do we have a motion to approve the request for continuance to the hearing of 2/9?
So moved, Ken Swanton.
I'll second it, Rachel
Second.
Webb.
Okay, motion's made by Mr. Swanton and seconded by, was it?
Rachel.
Webb?
Yes.
Yeah, seconded by Ms. Webb. Calling the roll, Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Delisle,
Yes.
Ms. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Swanton,
Yes.
Rob Ciampetti. I vote yes. That's 5 in the affirmative. The ayes have it. The motion carries and the matter is continued to the hearing of 2/9/2021. And thank you, Attorney Tylerman.
Welcome.
Okay, so before we get into the applications this evening, I'm just going to take a quick moment and explain the flow of how the zoning board deals with and addresses the format for public hearings on applications. Essentially, we start by announcing just the address and applicant name of each application and describe what's being sought or what's being applied for, whether it's a special permit for nonconformities, or variance or some sort of component of a variance. We then describe using the language that is in the application's publication itself, after which we will hear from the applicant's representative. That's attorney, engineer, or architect, the applicant themselves. At the close of the presentation of the application, we will then go to the public comment piece. We, in the public comment piece, do not require any member of the public to indicate they're for or against any application. Just simply indicate that you wish to be heard by raising your hand. You'll click the bottom right of your Zoom screen where it says raise hand, and Andy Port, our planning director, will unmute your mic. We'll then ask you, and I'll remind you to kindly let Ms. Gretchen Joy know your name and your address, and then feel free to speak your mind. We do ask as a courtesy and just as a matter of keeping time and being respectful to other applications and other members of the public who may wish to speak, we ask you to kindly keep your comments to about 2 minutes or so or under. Of course, there are extenuating circumstances, but we do ask that in the absence of that, you try to adhere to the 2-minute mark. At the end of hearing everyone who wishes to be heard with respect to an application, we then close that portion of the public hearing and we go to questions from the board. Questions from the board are when members of the ZBA will ask questions. They'll either adapt questions from comments they heard from the public, and they will pose those questions to anyone they wish. They can ask questions of the applicant's representatives. They may pose questions to anyone that has spoken on behalf of the application. At the expiration of that period and at the end of that period, we will close that portion of the public hearing, and we will then go to deliberations. Deliberations is a segment of the ZBA when essentially everyone who is in attendance or listening via Zoom gets to hear us think out loud. Every maturation, every thought, every sort of comment or question that the board members have, they will deliberate on around the legal criteria of the application. If it's a dimensional variance, they will talk about whether the requirements that need to be presented by the applicant have been met. They'll pose questions by and between each other. At the expiration of that, once we're finished with the deliberations piece, we'll close that portion of the public hearing, at which point I will entertain a motion to approve from any member of the ZBA. Under Robert's rules, we ask a motion to approve, even though that member may not be in support of an application. It's just the format. It's made in the form of an affirmative motion, a motion to approve, which must then be seconded. When a motion is made and seconded, we'll then call the roll, and at least 4 members of the ZBA must vote in the affirmative for the motion to carry and the application to pass. That's essentially the thumbnail on how this will flow. So without further ado, we'll go into the first application, which is the application of 17 Barton Street, the applicant Daniel Venoy, matter 2020-092, a special permit for nonconformities to expand the rear single-story family room addition, resulting in an upward extension of a pre-existing non-conforming setback and construction of over 500 square feet. May we hear from the applicant?
Good evening. My name is Daniel Venant. How's the board members this evening?
Very well, thank you.
This is my first time. So, any
Daniel, this is Andy. Your connection may be poor. We're
direct
having some issues.
guidance would be much appreciated. Project, is that the correct understanding?
Daniel, we're having some difficulty, I think, hearing you. Your audio
Okay.
coming in and out.
Okay. Would you let me maybe call in from my phone?
Sure.
You're good now, actually.
It seems to come and go.
Okay, hold on one moment, please. I'm sorry, can you hear me okay?
I can now, yes.
Okay, I apologize for the connection issues that I'm having on my end.
No worries, Daniel. This is Chairman Champetti. You can just go ahead and jump right back into it, and we'll let you know if there's, if we're unable to hear what you're saying.
Okay, great. So this is my primary residence, and as stated before, looking to take a non-conforming setbacks of the house, and there's already a non-original rear family addition that was put on in 1990, and I believe there's a permit that was pulled from City Hall. If you kind of look at the rear elevation, the addition family room with the chimney looks like the trim line and roof line was consistent with 1990 and not with an 1890s home. So one of our main goals is, yes, to put a second floor above that and enclose the porch and make it a screened-in porch, and put a master bedroom with a master bath above that. So currently it's a 3-bedroom home, 1 bath. We're looking to keep it 3 bedrooms, but add 1.5 baths. Some things that are important to us is also the aesthetics of the addition, keeping the roof below the main building, adding a sister dormer or very similar dormer, as you can see from the right side elevation. It's offset to the right, and it is smaller in proportion to balance the addition. But aesthetics is, I think, more the key here for the outside. We feel like this goes with the period of the home. Something else that we're looking to also accomplish is the windows locations. What's important to us is that there's about 3 different styles of windows in the home throughout. Some replacement, some original, some newer style. We're looking to upgrade those to more period looking windows with 2/2 divided lights, and put them back in their original home where they're kind of stacked above each other. Is everyone hearing me okay?
Yeah, we're hearing you. We're hearing you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Is there any questions, or can I expand upon anything else in particular?
Well, I'll tell you what, and this is Chairman Champetti again. We'll go around through the process, and we certainly may have questions, and we'll certainly let you know if we do. But is this was there anything else you wanted to add as part of the application phase, or was that about the extent of your presentation?
One thing I would like to note, and to be respectful of people's time and everyone's time, is there'll be no increase to the nonconformity of the side, front, or rear setbacks. Actually, we're going to increase the side setbacks where we can. So the deck will be narrowed or reduced in width. So it actually increased the setback from one of our neighbors' homes. We are cognizant of that, and from the front elevation, we're tucking the rear addition, or the proposed rear addition, inside the width of the main building. So from the front elevation, you won't see anything from the street, so to speak. And yeah, that will conclude my presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Benoit. So we'll close that portion of the public hearing, and we will go to the public comment section. And again, I remind members of the public, if you wish to speak, please just indicate that by clicking the bottom right of your Zoom screen where it says raise hand, and Andy Port will unmute your mic. Just give us your name and your address. Let's see. Seeing no hands raised. Going once, going twice. All right, we'll close that portion of the public hearing, and we'll go to questions from the board. We'll start with Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Chairman. I just had one question, more of a description on the addition in the back. The chimney will be obviously much larger because you're going up 2 stories. I just was wondering if you could describe a little bit about the materials and the exterior materials of that chimney.
Sure. The chimney that was installed, that's a newer chimney. It was, it is active currently right now. The chimney material that was utilized is clay brick,
I cannot hear.
and
the
it
applicant.
was from 1990. It did not look like the way. We would like to match that. We've been talking to a couple of
We're losing your, looks like we've lost Daniel completely.
Can you hear me now, sir?
Yeah, I didn't. I don't know about anyone else. I didn't get much of, unfortunately, much of any of that. It went back to the whole cutout problem from the start. So I really maybe got 1% of what you'd said.
Or same.
Mr. Benoit, this is Chairman Champetti again. Do you want to try it again and just kind of just restate what you just said? We had you loud and clear at the presentation, but then it just went a little wonky. I don't know if you may be too close to the speaker of your computer, and it could be sort of feedback from the your microphone and speaker. But maybe turning the speaker down if you can, turning the audio down in the computer might help.
The Chairman, the sound that's happening makes me think it's a data stream issue, that maybe a service is somehow slowed on the computer or network that's being used.
Okay, got it.
That's, yeah.
Thanks, Andy. Mr. Benoit, can you still hear us?
Yes, I've been hearing the.
Oh, great.
How do I sound now?
You sound good. You sound good right now. So go.
Okay, great. If I lose or I'm not coming in clear, just please interrupt me right away. No problem. May I have another opportunity to?
Yeah, please. By all means, jump right in.
So the question was about the chimney material on the rear addition, and is depicted in the rear elevation that is up on the screen, I believe. That material is clay brick. It was some sort of clay brick from 1990. Doesn't appear to be like used brick or historic brick in any way. Our plan is to extend it above the addition by 3 feet to meet code, and try to find something very similar to match that in color, texture, and also to match the grout kind of age, so it doesn't look like it's a mismatch piece as best as we can. The materials on the siding would be wood as well. Cedar clap is what we're planning to do. We would like to remove all the paint, and because it hasn't been properly cared for in quite some time. So in totality, we'll be taking off all the rotted trim, or saving it if we can, and sanding it would be ideal, and match the existing main house as well with cedar wood clap.
Excellent. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moore. And thank you, Mr. Benoit. Mr. Delisle, any questions for Mr. Benoit?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few questions. So just to understand, is the plan that the existing back will remain in place and you'll just build upon a portion of it, or will it be taken out entirely and a new addition put in its place?
So the plan is to remove the roof and the 3 walls off that rear addition, leaving the floor assembly. The reason why we would like to remove the walls is because currently they're only 2x4, and we're trying to put insulation in the home because currently there is none throughout to meet today's code. Secondarily to that is the wall height is significantly shorter in comparison to what the original main house is. The original main first floor, I think, is about 8'10". Currently in that room, have matching wall heights on the first floor leading into that family room, and then put a second floor on it and enclose the porch down below.
Okay, so when you're talking about building on being in the same footprint, you're literally going to be on that footprint of the existing addition, and you'll only be expanding outwards to be where the current deck is, correct?
That is correct. And just to highlight the detail, we're actually going to trim that deck back because currently it goes right up to the corner board. We'd like to shorten the width of the deck so it's kind of tucked in. But yes, we are not pouring more foundation and extending the footprint. We're just going straight up on what's existing there from 1990.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
That's it for me.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Delisle. Ms. Webb?
Hi, I had a question. Well, Mr. Delisle asked one of my questions about building on top of the deck. And I have another question about the porch area in the front. Are you doing, is that changing at all? I'm sorry, I don't see the elevation there. I mean, the right side front where is porch there now. Is that staying the same?
I believe that you're referencing the front right porch there.
Correct.
Currently, we are planning to not extend that footprint, but work within it currently. And we would like to enclose that to make that with banisters and 3 columns. But we'd like to enclose that with similar windows to the rest of the house and make that a side entry. Bring the front door, that side door forward. You note that in the front elevation, but on the side right elevation, yes, we plan to enclose that to make a mudroom there, but keeping the existing roof, the original roof, but just putting a new roof covering over it to match. It's but keeping the original framework there.
Thank you. That's it.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, and Mr. Swanton?
No, I have no questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Swanton. I also have no additional questions that haven't already been asked. So we can close that portion of the public hearing and move ourselves right into deliberations. Now, since this is a special permit for nonconformities, the board in deliberating will need to find that the application is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the pre-existing non-conforming use and structure. And of course, as we are well familiar, when we're making the finding, we can consider factors such as size, scale, mass, and volume, location, and location of the proposed structure, extension or alteration, as compared to the existing structure, the existing lot, or other structures and lots in the neighborhood. And this is all 9B2 of the zoning code. So with that, we will go into deliberations, and we'll start with Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a really well thought out, well planned, very reasonable and attractive change to the house. A lot of thought went into not making this any more detrimental to the neighborhood in a very careful way. So given that there's no new nonconformities, it's just an upward extension. And the consideration that went into the mass and the size and the conformity in the back of the main house, I don't see it being any more detrimental than what's there already. So I can certainly support this.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Delisle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd agree with Mr. Moore. I think it's a nice project. The only thing I see here is that we have an increase in the lot coverage, but again, I concur with Mr. Moore that this is not going to be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood based on the care that went into the design and the drawings here. So I can support this.
Thank you, Mr. Delisle. Ms. Webb.
Thank you. There's really nothing not to like about this proposal. I think the applicant's done a great job in trying to return the home to its original style and character. And from the street, you're not going to notice any substantial change. They've, decided to step back the rear addition and tuck the back addition away a little bit more. I can support this project. I think it's a good one. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Webb. And Mr. Swanton.
My colleagues have already said it well. I too can support this proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Swanton. And I also concur. The applicant has satisfied, in my opinion as well, both prongs that are required to be found under a special permit for nonconformities, and given us certainly more than enough information upon which we can base our findings. So I too can support it. We'll close that portion of the public hearing. Do we have a motion to approve?
I will make a motion to approve special permit for nonconformities for 17 Barton Street, file number 2020-092. Mr. Moore.
I'll second that, Mr. Delisle.
Thank you. Motion's made by Mr. Moore and seconded by Mr. Delisle. Calling the roll. Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Delisle.
Yes.
Ms. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. Swanton.
Yes.
And Rob Champetti, I vote yes. That's 5 in the affirmative. The ayes have it. The motion carries and the application is approved. Thank you and good luck to you, Mr. Benoit.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, zoning appeal members. Much appreciated your time. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thanks. Moving on to the next application. This is the application of Mark Vincent and Jennifer Vincent for the property located at 1 Hollisey Drive. This is matter 2020-093. It's a special permit for nonconformities. The applicant seeks to construct a single-story addition to the rear of the home, extending a pre-existing non-conforming rear setback. May we hear from the applicant? It looks like Mr. Vincent is with us, and we can go ahead and unmute your mic, Mr. Vincent.
Yes, hi. Nice to meet you, Mr. Champetti. I want to first thank Jennifer Blanchet for her guidance on this, and Caitlin Sullivan for helping with filing for this. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, terrific. So my wife and I are asking for permission to construct a single-story addition in the rear of the house on 1 Hollisey Drive. And that would extend a pre-existing non-conforming setback. So the project scope would consist of removing and replacing an existing addition to the rear of the house, as well as adding a second addition to the right side of the existing dwelling. And the whole point of all this is to try to get us so that we're living on a single level, to make this almost like a lifetime home, and to remove any of the barriers that we currently have within the house, step downs and things like that. So the idea is to be able to live on a single level. The second aspect to this is to meet the health and safety energy codes that are currently existing in Newburyport. And the final aspect is to impact the neighborhood in a really positive way. And that's supported by a support letter from our neighbors that are most likely affected by this plan, which is the rear setback. So there is a letter of support that's been filed, which is great. As we look at the design, thank you for moving to this. You can see in white is the existing dwelling, it's a mansard colonial. The front is 1 Hollisey Drive, and around the corner, it's a corner lot, is 1 Pine Hill Road. So the garage is to the left, to the middle is the main house, to the right, the addition where there's going to be an office, because I end up losing my office space by living on 1 floor. To the back of it, you can see in the middle is the addition. And that's a remove and replace. So there is an existing 3-season porch there that's in disrepair, and that needs to come down to make room for this addition. So the pitch has changed with this addition so that it'll allow for no step downs from the current dwelling into this aspect of it. So there's a safety aspect that we considered when making this design. Again, I have to mention also that Jim House, who's the home designer, is also on the line to answer questions, so he'll be with us. If you take a look to the bottom, you can see the right elevation and the left elevation with the chimney at the bottom right of the design. with the additions. So we can move to the next. I think there's another drawing after this one that we could move to. Thank you. This is how it looks right now. I guess we probably should have put this one before the additions, but this is how it looks. And if you take a look at the overall height of the addition, it measures to 14.5 feet in height, in case you were wondering. The rear addition measures 14 by 19. The side addition measures 16 by 16. So we feel like that will allow for enough room for my wife and I to live comfortably on this floor and to improve the home.
Okay, very good. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Mr. Vincent?
No, I'll turf this out to Jim House, our home designer. Jim, would you like to add anything?
Hi, yeah, can you hear me, Chairman Champetti and everybody?
We sure can, Mr. House. Feel free to add any additional color as you see fit to the application.
Fantastic. This is Jim House. I'm an architectural designer. I've been working repeatedly with the Vincents on this particular issue. What we have tried to resolve with this layout is a couple of compounding matters. The reason for putting it exactly where we have it, the way we have it, is largely for setbacks from the streets and views from the neighbors and so forth. So there's privacy for both the homeowner and passersby. That Pine Hill Road is pretty darn busy. And the fact that we have a bulkhead that exists out the back that prohibits us from orienting along, flush to the back of the house or thereabouts. So we've just tried to do the very best we can to fit the house, the need, the layout. The builder has advised that the roof pitches don't work any other way, and that the removal of water from that, mansard shedding nightmare kind of needs a little help there. And we didn't want to have to move the bulkhead and so forth. Beyond that, it's really the structure that's there is moldy and single pane, and just pretty much a tacked on screen porch that was put in quite some time ago. It's a usable 3-season room, but it just starts to feel pretty dated, and it's down about 2-3 steps and right on grade, no real foundation. So we're just trying to clean everything up, make the space that they need at the back of the house the way it's oriented now, and not compound matters. And everybody seemed to be agreeable with that approach. We tested several, and this was the winner. So I hope that it meets with your approval. Is there any questions?
We may have some questions as we circle around, Mr. House, and thank you for adding that additional information. We'll go ahead and close that portion of the public hearing and go to the public comment section. And Andy Port will put up the slide just with the instructions and public comment. But again, anyone who wishes to speak either in support or in opposition, or just simply speak in connection to the application, just simply click the bottom right of your Zoom screen where it says raise hand, and we will unmute your mic, and feel free to let us know what you think. Anyone wish to comment? Looking at our attendees, I see no hands raised. Going once, going twice. Okay, so we'll close that portion of the public hearing, and we'll go to questions from the board. Mr. Moore, why don't you kick things off?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought it was pretty thorough with both presenters. So at this time, I have no questions.
All right, very good. Mr. Delisle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to take a quick page out of Mr. Moore's book from the last hearing and just ask Mr. House as to the materials and the windows that will be used in the 2 additions.
Yes, primarily we're matching the big pine coins on the corners, which we will not be recreating, but we are doing some lower banding in the woodwork that would be more of a shiplap style, and that's for the garden effect, and then regular matching clapboard above to match the home.
Thank you. That's it for me.
All right, thank you, Mr. Delisle. Ms. Webb.
I have no questions. The presentation was very thorough. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Webb. Mr. Swanton.
No questions for me either.
All right, thank you, Mr. Swanton. And I also have no further questions. I think it was a thorough application, well presented, and certainly hit all the points that I would be looking for as well. So I will go ahead and close that portion of the public hearing, and we will move to deliberations. And again, since this is a special permit for nonconformities, as the board deliberates, I ask that we tailor our deliberations around the two criteria that need to be met in if the board is to grant a special permit for nonconformities. The first of which is that the board must find that there is no new nonconformity being created, and second, that the application will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the pre-existing non-conforming use or structure. And of course, we can use in considering that prong of the criteria factors such as size, scale, massing, volume, and the location of the proposed structure as compared to the existing structure and lot and other structures in the neighborhood or reasonable alternatives. Again, this is 9B2. I'll also point this out for the record that the project does not appear to trigger the tree and sidewalk ordinance. So we have no specific requests from DPS or the tree committee with respect to that. So going into then deliberations, we'll begin with Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the risk of totally repeating myself from the prior application, I'm going to do it anyway. Another, well thought out, considerate plan that brings the owner much more utility to the home, with taking into consideration the neighborhood. It's not creating a new nonconformity. It's certainly not going to be more detrimental given the size of the lot and the placement of the addition, and then improving the back from the rear porch into a real usable space. I think and improving the structure overall is a great thing for the neighborhood as well. So I can once again support this application.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Delisle.
I would again echo Mr. Moore's conclusion regarding this application. And I would also note that in the materials, there was a letter of support from the neighbor on that backside who would be closest to the addition that's moving into the rear setback. So I think that's worth mentioning. But again, I don't see any new nonconformity, and this seems like it will certainly not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. So I can support this app as well.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Delisle. Ms. Webb.
Mr. Delisle pretty much summed up exactly what I was going to say. I'm in support of this project. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Webb. Mr. Swanton.
Yeah, I too am fine with this. I went by it. It seems to be a lot of space to work with. Seems like it'll be fine. So I can support this.
Very good. And I too have nothing further to add that my colleagues haven't already said. I too can support it. So closing that portion of the public hearing, do we have a motion?
Rachel Webb, I'll make a motion to approve this 1 Halsey Drive special permit for nonconformities 2020-093.
All right. Do we have a second?
Seconded, Mr. Moore.
All right. Motion's made by Ms. Webb and seconded by Mr. Moore. Calling the roll. Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Delisle.
Yeah.
Ms. Webb.
Yes.
Mr. Swanton.
Yes.
Rob Champetti, I vote yes. That is 5 in the affirmative. The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the special permit for nonconformities is approved. Good luck to you, Mr. and Mrs. Vincent, and thank you both, and thank you, Mr. House, for your contribution as well.
Thank you, ZBA board members. Really appreciate it.
All right. Have a great evening.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Dave.
Okay, moving to the last public hearing on our agenda this evening. This is also a special permit for nonconformities. The application is for the property at 3 Lunt Street. The applicants are Alyssa and Kenneth Christie, care of Lisa Mead, Tellerman and Costa LLC. The application's docket 2021-094, special permit for nonconformities to change a portion of the porch's roof pitch into a flat roof, resulting in an upward extension of a pre-existing non-conforming side setback. Let's see. I see Mr. Attorney Tallerman. I assume you're presenting, or?
Yes.
Okay, great. So if you want to go ahead, you have the floor.
All right, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, Attorney Tallerman, if I could just interrupt for a moment. This is Mr. Delisle. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recuse myself from this application.
Okay, very good. Mr. Delisle has recused himself from the application, which means we're going to bring up Mr. Shannon to be our fifth voting member on this application with Mr. Delisle's recusal. Thank you very much, Mr. Delisle.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I think the facts here are relatively brief. What we have here is a very minor change in a small addition to the property. The existing room that we're seeking to tear down and rebuild is in disrepair. There's been some damage, and this is really just replacing it, albeit with a slightly different kind of geometry to it, more of a flat roof than a pitch roof to gain a little more useful interior space. It's a one-story small structure. There is no change to the existing footprint. There's nothing historic about it. This particular sunroom was built in 2004. It is non-conforming. We are not adding any new non-conformity. We're not going up a second story. The setback distance is not changing in any way, shape, or form. It does meet your criteria for requiring of a special permit. There has been some recent case law in the Bjorkland Norwell case that might indicate you wouldn't even need a special permit, but certainly under your ordinance, the spirit of it requires a special permit. So here we are. There are some plans, I believe, in some of the next slides, Andy. So that's the existing conditions plan, kind of shows you where everything is. Next slide. So you can see the sunroom in the back with the sloped roof. That is coming off. And as shown in the next slide, we're just kind of squaring it up. And that is it. That is the sum total of the entire changes that we are before you with. Again, no new nonconformities. We don't believe it could be any detrimental effect on the neighborhood whatsoever. We're not seeking to go up any further or out any further. That is really the sum total of what's before you tonight.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Tellerman. Anything further you want to add before we move on?
No, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Everything is as shown on the slides that we've submitted in the proposal, and this one kind of the picture tells 1,000 words here.
Okay, thanks very much. We'll close the presentation portion of the public hearing and go to the public comment section. Andy, if you could put that slide up, thank you. There's not very many folks in attendance, but I will anyway ask anyone wish to speak in connection with this application, whether for or against, please just simply speak. Please just click the bottom right of your Zoom screen where it says raise hand, and we will recognize you. Going once, going twice, seeing no hands raised, I'm going to go ahead and close that portion of the public hearing and go into questions from the board. Mr. Moore, we'll start with you.
My hand is also not raised. Presentation, very simple, and I have no question.
All right, thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Delisle.
I had recused myself from this one, Mr. Chairman.
Of course. I'm sorry about that. Ms. Webb.
I have a question for the applicant regarding the windows, because if you compare the existing to the proposed, aren't the windows changing?
This is Matt Langist, a designer, Scott Brown Architects. The windows in the back are being replaced. There's existing casement windows, and we're matching them in a like kind to the existing windows that they have in the main house. So we're replacing those windows with an Anderson that also has simulated divided lights.
I think the main house primarily has the 6/6 windows, and these are what, 6/9s, and there's like a dozen different kinds of windows, it looks like.
Yeah, it's gone through a couple of renovations over time, right?
So are all of the windows getting changed out in the house?
No, it's just the primarily the two that are in the main box shown on the left elevation. And then the others are concentrated towards the addition.
Is there an existing condition elevation that we could compare this to?
There is, it is on EC3. Yep, exactly. So those three casements that are in the addition are being replaced for going in there now are three new windows of different style, including a transom above, but matching sort of the similar proportions of the existing double hungs that are in the main house now.
I just think it looks a lot different to me. I mean, windows really aren't our purview, but it just the style and the character looks a lot different. That's it.
Okay. Anything further, Ms. Webb?
No, thanks.
Okay. Mr. Swanton.
Yeah, just for clarity, on this particular drawing that's in front of us now, basically all you're doing is you're taking that slanted roof on the shed roof there in the back and you're tilting it up straight across, right? I mean, that's basically why you're here.
That's exactly right.
Okay, I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Swanton. And Mr. Shannon.
I had one question. By going to a flat roof, sometimes it does encourage people to put roof decks on. Is there any intention to do that at a further date? And would it be possible, or is it a step up from that second story room that comes over adjacent to the flat roof?
This is Matt Lynch again from Scott Brown Architects. Based on where the new roof height would be, it's about 1.5 feet above where the floor would be on the second floor. And the clients actually already have a roof deck that is off of the existing second floor up on the access off of the third floor, sorry. So there is no intention of making this into a roof deck. It would, it's about, like I said, about 1.5 feet above the existing floor. So it would require steps and a whole other a set of issues, but no intention of creating another roof deck.
Great, thank you. No other questions, Chair.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I too have no further questions that haven't already been addressed. So we can close that portion of the public hearing and go into deliberations. And again, as we said earlier, in earlier applications, because this is a special permit for nonconformities, the board must deliberate in terms of the special permit for nonconformities criteria, which there are two. In this instance, the board must find that there will be no addition of a new nonconformity. And also, number two, that the board must also find that the application will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the pre-existing non-conforming use or structure. And of course, when we make that finding, we may consider factors such as size, scale, massing, volume, and location of the proposed structure, extension or alteration as compared to the existing structure or the lot, as well as other lots and structures in the neighborhood. And again, this is pursuant to 9B2. Finally, I'll just note for the record that the project does not appear to trigger the tree and sidewalk ordinance. So we have no comment or request from DPS or the Newburyport City Tree Committee with respect to either. So with that, let's move into deliberations. Mr. Moore, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given the minor change, really, that the roof line flattening out, improving, the windows don't match as well as was pointed out by a colleague, Ms. Webb, but I think the look of them is an improvement over the plain casement that's there. So the fact that there's no change in footprint, the roof line just is an upward extension of the non-conforming setback. No new non-conformity is certainly one box checked. And then as far as more detrimental to the neighborhood, it's such a minor change and an improvement with some of the look that I can certainly support it.
All right, very good. And Ms. Webb?
Thank you. This the special permit really, there's there's no new nonconformity with what they're proposing in terms of the roof change. The first floor windows definitely are changing, and I know that's really not part of the special permit application, but I just want to comment that I think I'd be in complete support if all those windows were going to be 6/6s like most of the windows on the rest of the house. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Webb. Mr. Swanton?
I think my colleagues have said it pretty well. I mean, this is quite a minor change, changing a roof line on that back addition. So I can support this application. I don't see this being more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Swanton. And Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Chair. I can also support this. Beautiful home. I think this is an easy one, changing the pitch of a roof, and I can support it. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too echo the comments of many of my colleagues. I also can support this. I want to additionally note that there were no neighbors certainly in opposition or that voiced any concern or opposition, and oftentimes in close quarters, especially in the south end, where structures and neighborhoods are very close into one another, when proposed alterations seem to sort of cross a complete line, we often hear about it. I note that we don't hear, and this is a very modest application, it seems, and well presented. So I too can support it. We'll go ahead and close that portion of the public hearing and close deliberations. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve special permit for nonconformities for 3 Lunt Street, file number 2021-094. This is Mr. Moore.
And I'll second it, Mr. Swanton.
Very good. Motion is made by Mr. Moore and seconded by Mr. Swanton. I'll call the roll. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Webb?
Yes.
Mr. Swanton?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Rob Champetti, I vote yes. That is 5 in the affirmative. The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the special permit for nonconformities is approved. Congratulations to the Christies, and thank you, Attorney Tallerman, for your presentation as well.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
All right, you take care, and thank you all. Okay, so that concludes our last public hearing on the agenda. So we can close. We're going to close that portion of our agenda and move to the business meeting, which leaves essentially just our review and approval of the minutes of the meeting of January 12th. This was a meeting that I was not in attendance for, so Mr. Moore was the acting chair for that meeting, so I won't have any comment on the minutes. But does anyone else have any comments on any of the minutes from that meeting?
Mr. Chairman, this is.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Rachel.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I had just a couple of really minor edits that I had forwarded to Gretchen previously.
Okay. You know what? By the way, I don't see Gretchen on. Oh, yes, I do. Okay. So, Gretchen, did you have, I assume you have those comments?
I do.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay. Any other comments, changes, or
Mr. Chair, this is Bud Shagnon. Just in case Rachel didn't pick up the same one, page 3, 3rd sentence. I think it says has meet, and it should be met, has met. I'm guessing Rachel picked it up, but just in case, there we go.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing no further comments, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the hearing of January 12th?
That's Rachel Webb. I'll move to approve the minutes of January 12th.
All right, motion's made. And Mr. Moore, do you want to pick up the second?
I'll pick up the second on that.
All right, motion's made by Ms. Webb and seconded by Mr. Moore. We'll call the roll on approval of the minutes. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Delisle,
Yes.
Ms. Webb.
I'm just noticing, Mr. Chair, that there's a typo on the agenda. It says January 12th, 2020, 21.
All right, we'll,
Scrivener's error only, not an issue.
Thank you. And I vote yes to approve the minutes.
all right, and Mr. Swanton.
Yeah, I vote yes, and I'd like to thank Rachel for carefully looking through the minutes.
All right, and Mr. Shannon.
Yes.
All right, I will abstain on this vote. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 votes in the affirmative. The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the minutes are adopted. And thank you all for the close review. And also, I want to thank Ms. Joy for your tireless work in writing down everything that we say. God help us all, right? But thank you for what you do. Okay, well, unless there's any further business that we need to take up, that concludes the agenda of the Newburyport Zoning Board of Appeals for the meeting of January 26, 2021. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Ken Swanton.
All right.
Seconded, Mark Moore.
All right. Motion's made and seconded, and all those in favor, please respond by saying aye. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 The ayes appear to have it. The motion carries and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much, and have a great rest of your week.
Wow.
You too.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, guys.